Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving right into something that is absolutely crucial. I mean, literally a make or break reality in the business world, and that's professional ethics in procurement. We usually think about procurement as, well, negotiations, supply chains, hammering out cost savings, right? But underneath all that machinery lies a foundation you can't even see until it starts to crack. And that foundation? It's trust. So, what does it actually take to protect the reputation of an entire profession? Let's break down the CIPS Code of Conduct to see exactly how professional integrity is built, maintained, and, yeah, sometimes tragically lost.
Okay, let this statement really sink in for a second. Your personal actions reflect on every procurement professional worldwide. That is a massive responsibility. You're not just making choices for yourself anymore, or even just for your boss. Every single decision you make, every vendor you talk to, every contract you sign, it echoes across the entire global landscape of the profession. We've got to start with this big picture view because, let's face it, ethics isn't just some personal preference. It's a shared global standard. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how that scale actually works. Look right there in the center at that glowing green hexagon. That's your individual action. That's the choice you make on a random Tuesday afternoon when you think nobody's paying attention. But look at how that center connects to the rings around it. A single ethical failure in that center ring, it doesn't just stay put. It ripples outward like a stone in a pond, hitting your institutional reputation and ultimately smashing into that golden outer ring of global professional credibility. Since procurement professionals wield immense commercial influence, one localized slip-up can completely wipe out confidence across entire global institutions. No pressure, right? So here is our roadmap for the explainer today. We'll start with 1, protecting the procurement profession, then move to 2, the inward core of integrity, 3, rules for gifts and hospitality, 4, the 5-step ethical check, and wrap up with 5, beyond simple rule following. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, protecting the procurement profession. Commitment 1. Maintaining your professional standing requires 2 things working perfectly in tandem. Over on the left, you've got the outward shield. This represents Commitment 1, your responsibility to physically protect the profession's standing from external damage. But, a shield is totally useless if the person holding it is weak. And that brings us to the right side, the inward core. This is Commitment 2, your personal integrity. The shield protects the profession out in the open, but the inward core, that demands you do the right thing even when absolutely no one is watching. Let's focus on that outward shield for a second. Commitment 1 demands that you act as a literal ambassador for procurement. Because you wield so much commercial influence, your behavior is always under a microscope. You absolutely must avoid any conduct that damages professional credibility. It's your job to promote ethical and responsible practices and to support the long-term development of the profession. Basically, every single action you take in your professional life either actively strengthens or actively weakens public trust in procurement. There's really no neutral ground here. Moving on to section 2, the inward core of integrity, commitment 2. Okay, so these are the non-negotiable rules of that inward core. You've got to be honest and transparent in all your dealings. You have to avoid not just actual conflicts of interest, but perceived ones too, and we're going to talk more about that super critical distinction in just a minute. You must never, ever misuse your authority or leak confidential information. But hey, it's not just about what you don't do, it's about what you do. You've got to demonstrate ethical courage under pressure. That means stepping up and reporting unethical behavior when you see it. True integrity is an active discipline. It's about keeping your personal conduct totally beyond reproach in every single interaction. This pyramid shows us exactly why that inward core is so absolutely vital. At the very bottom, that solid green base, that's your personal integrity and values. That base holds up your professional conduct, which in turn supports the golden peak at the very top, public trust and institutional confidence. The logic here is just inescapable. If that base of personal integrity fractures, if you compromise on those non-negotiable rules we just talked about, the whole structure is going to come crashing down, and that golden peak of public trust will inevitably collapse. Now for section 3, rules for gifts and hospitality, navigating the gray area. All right, I want you to imagine this scenario. You've just finished a grueling but really successful contract negotiation. The supplier invites you out to a super expensive dinner and slides a pair of VIP concert tickets across the table as a thank you. They smile and say, "Oh, don't worry, everyone accepts these," which, by the way, is the oldest red flag in the history of business. Just think about it. Would you accept? And even if you know in your heart of hearts that you won't let those tickets influence your future decisions, could this appear to compromise your objectivity to someone looking from the outside? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it charts exactly that kind of dilemma. We're looking at the spectrum of acceptability. Notice those boundaries. Over on the left, safely in the green acceptable zone, gifts have to be of nominal value, transparent, modest, reasonable, and strictly declared. But look at how fast that slider can rocket to the right, straight into the red unacceptable zone. Frequent gifts, lavish dinners, those expensive VIP tickets, hidden deals, or anything that creates a lingering sense of obligation, bam, that pushes you right into the danger zone. And that VIP ticket scenario we just talked about, yeah, that is hovering dangerously far to the right.
The absolutely crucial point here is understanding the gap between your actual intention and public perception. You might be sitting at that fancy dinner thinking your intention is 100% pure. You're objective, unbiased, totally immune to bribery. But ethical procurement isn't just about actual integrity. It's equally about the appearance of integrity. Even if your intention is totally pure, if there's a public perception of favoritism or secretive backroom dealings, well, trust is destroyed just as effectively as if you were actually corrupt. Bottom line, perception matters just as much as intention. Which brings us to Section 4, the 5-step ethical check, your diagnostic toolkit. Okay, let's dive into this. When you're sitting there staring at those VIP tickets, how do you actually protect yourself from the trap of bad perception? You run the situation through this 5-step filtration system. Step 1, is it legal? Usually, yes, but honestly, that's just the bare minimum. Step 2, is it transparent? Is this happening out in the open, or are you secretly hoping nobody finds out? Step 3, is it fair and objective? Does this give the supplier an unfair advantage over the competition? Step 4, would I be comfortable seeing this on the front page of tomorrow's newspaper? And finally, Step 5, does it protect stakeholder trust? Listen, if you get a no or even slightly hesitate on any of these questions, you've got your answer right there. I actually want to focus deeply on Step 4 for a second, the front page visualizer. This is the ultimate standard of public visibility. Honestly, ask yourself, would your professional reputation survive if your backroom dealings were published in the Daily Times for the whole world to see? Do you want the headline to read, "Procurement Officer Declines Gifts, Ensures Fair Competition," which keeps you nicely in the safe integrity checkpoint zone? Or do you want the headline to scream, "Scandal, VIP tickets linked to major contract award"? That plops you right into the risk exposure zone. Always, always project the outcome before you act. So, returning to our VIP ticket scenario, our toolkit empowers a very clear, highly protective decision. You've got to politely decline those VIP tickets. Then, you must declare the offer immediately on your organization's gift register. And from there, you proceed to maintain full, transparent objectivity. Look, it might feel a little awkward in the moment, I get it. But that momentary awkwardness is exactly the thing that protects your career and your organization's reputation from a front-page scandal. Let's wrap up with Section 5, beyond simple rule following. Building institutional trust. Let's move to and see how this builds all together. Over on the left, the rings represent our 5-step diagnostic filtration system. Notice how applying that diagnostic rigor directly constructs the solid layers of the ethics pyramid we saw earlier. Steps 1, 2, and 3 forge that strong green base of personal integrity. Step 4, the front page test, reinforces the middle teal layer of professional conduct. And Step 5, protecting stakeholder trust, elevates the whole entire structure to that golden peak of public trust. It's amazing. Your individual rigor is literally the building block of institutional confidence. I really want to leave you with this profound thought. Ethics begins where simple rule following ends. Ticking compliance boxes? That's easy. But true ethical leadership requires you to navigate the gray areas, to prioritize perception just as much as intention, and to act as the ultimate guardian of trust when the pressure is really on. So, as you head back to your daily tasks, your negotiations, and your supplier meetings, keep this explainer in the back of your mind. Knowing that public perception matters just as much as your personal internal intention, how are you going to respond to your next tempting hospitality offer? Will you protect the core, or are you going to risk the entire pyramid? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep learning.
Learning reinforcement.
Procurement professionals direct the flow of trillions of dollars across global markets, managing the supply lines that sustain modern industry. Within this interconnected web, a single practitioner's choice has a ripple effect. Every individual action serves as a data point for the reputation of the entire global profession. This responsibility is codified in CIPS Commitment 1, which mandates that every member actively enhance and protect the standing of the procurement profession. Daily decisions, from how a tender is structured, to how a vendor is treated, either reinforce or erode public confidence in the sourcing process. When these individual points of contact remain reliable, the wider commercial network functions efficiently. In this way, professional ethics acts as the operational foundation for stable, predictable global trade. Many organizations treat ethics as a static checklist of rules to be satisfied and put away. A more effective approach treats ethical behavior as an active risk management system, essential for identifying and diffusing threats before they reach the enterprise level. This system is designed to safeguard three specific assets: institutional trust, procedural fairness, and commercial credibility. If these safeguards fail, the resulting loss of confidence can disrupt an organization's ability to secure favorable terms or attract top-tier partners. This defensive framework is built on CIPS commitment to the requirement to maintain the highest standard of integrity at all times. Integrity is the baseline variable. It requires choosing the correct course of action even when there is no external oversight or pressure to do so. This procurement ethics pyramid illustrates how that individual trait scales. At the base is personal integrity, the internal values of the practitioner. This base supports the middle layer of professional conduct, where honesty and transparency are applied. Together, these layers hold up the apex, public trust and external confidence placed in the institution. If personal integrity fails, the layers above lose their structural support, leading to a visible collapse of professional conduct and institutional reputation. To prevent this, the code mandates whistleblowing. Reporting on ethical behavior acts as a critical reinforcing mechanism to stabilize the system. Large-scale systems are held together by these individual choices, making personal integrity the requirement for any functioning institution. We see this theory applied most frequently in the rules governing gifts, hospitality, and personal conduct. CIPS sets clear boundaries. Gifts must be of nominal value and infrequent, while hospitality must be modest, reasonable, and fully transparent. A common error is the assumption that a thank you gift is harmless as long as the professional knows their own objectivity remains intact. This overlooks the sharp asymmetry between internal intention and external observation. Because stakeholders cannot see your internal intent, they can only evaluate the observable action. The black box of your mind remains unreadable to the public. In a professional context, integrity and the observable appearance of integrity are functionally identical. To maintain trust, both must be present. Let's apply this to a specific, socially complex scenario. Following a successful negotiation, the winning supplier invites you to an expensive dinner and offers VIP concert tickets as a celebration of the new partnership. The supplier minimizes the gesture, claiming that everyone in the industry accepts such offers. First, ask if accepting this would actually change your professional objectivity. Then ask the more critical question: how would this look to a competing bidder or an external auditor? Relying on a personal feeling of fairness is insufficient. A systematic diagnostic tool is required to reach an objective decision. The CIPS 5-step ethical check provides that diagnostic filter. We can run the VIP offer through each gate to see if it survives. Gate 1. Is it legal? While corporate gifting is generally permitted by law, legality is only the minimum standard for a professional. Gate 2. Is it transparent? Consider if you would formally declare this dinner to executive leadership. Gate 3. Is it fair and objective? A competitor would likely view this post-contract reward as favoritism, casting doubt on the fairness of future tenders. Gate 4. The front page test. Imagine the details of this transaction appearing as the lead story in tomorrow's news. Gate 5. Does it protect stakeholder trust? No. Accepting high-value hospitality from a supplier undermines the credibility of the entire organization's procurement function. This diagnostic process removes personal rationalization from the decision, providing a clear operational path. The results from the 5-step diagnostic are final and unambiguous. The professional must decline the offer of VIP tickets and the expensive dinner. To maintain full transparency, the professional should then formally report the offer to their manager or compliance officer. This sequence of actions preserves unassailable objectivity, fulfilling the requirements of Commitment 2. Because a perceived conflict of interest is just as damaging to institutional trust as a real one, These boundaries must be strictly maintained. When we look at the macro scale, we can see how these individual decisions aggregate. Consistent application of these ethical diagnostics is what builds long-term market fairness and organizational credibility. In this framework, professional ethics begins exactly where simple rule following ends. Review your current operations. How does your organization systematically evaluate and diffuse high-pressure hospitality offers?
Learning reinforcement.
Your personal actions as a procurement professional don't just reflect on you. They reflect on every procurement practitioner worldwide. In complex supply chains, your individual decisions do not scale linearly. A single microaction can destabilize the entire system. Look at this concentric model. It illustrates how a singular ethical choice radiates outward from the individual practitioner, eventually shaping global standing. An individual action, the center point here, dictates institutional reputation. That reputation, in turn, directly feeds into the global credibility of the entire profession. Because practitioners wield immense commercial leverage, missteps carry unique, systemic risks. Ethical failures stall individual careers and fracture the commercial confidence of entire institutions, making ethical mastery a strict structural necessity. Institutional trust operates on extreme asymmetry. It takes years of rigid, verified compliance to construct, but it shatters outward from a single point of impact. This exposes the core operational paradox of vendor relations. The appearance of a conflict of interest erodes trust as effectively as overt corruption. When C-suite leaders and auditors evaluate systemic risk, they do not assess a practitioner's internal intentions. They judge based on verifiable external optics. Pure, objective intent offers absolutely zero protection to an organization if the action visually mimics favoritism to an outside observer. We are going to decode the structural architecture of procurement ethics so you can master the mechanics of perceived objectivity. Because perception governs reality in global supply chains, professionals must adopt a dynamic framework for managing external optics, moving past basic algorithmic rule following. This schematic details the dual architecture required to maintain professional standing. The left side, the outward shield, is your commitment to act as a visible ambassador. The right side, the inward core, demands unassailable integrity, absolute transparency, and zero misuse of authority. These systems are mutually dependent. A defensive shield fails if the core is corrupt, and a pure core remains vulnerable if you fail to act as an outward ambassador. This three-tiered pyramid shows how these dual commitments stack to create institutional value. The individual actor sits at the base layer of personal integrity, while their adherence to clear rules forms the middle tier of professional conduct. Reaching the apex, public trust, requires the practitioner to simultaneously maintain both their inward core and their outward shield. The most frequent stress test for these frameworks is the acceptance of supplier gifts and hospitality. This chart visualizes the spectrum of acceptability. Acceptability is not a simple binary. It demands absolute transparency and strict nominal value limits. To map how intentions collide with public interpretation, we use this matrix. In the top left green quadrant, pure intentions align with transparent perception. But the ultimate danger zone lies in the top right amber quadrant. Here, a perceived conflict erases actual objectivity because it looks like secretive favoritism. Surviving high-stakes negotiations requires actively steering clear of this amber zone. Ethical procurement means aggressively managing the appearance of fairness. Let's apply this matrix to a real-world scenario that forces a choice between immediate gain and long-term objectivity. After a successful negotiation, a supplier invites you to an expensive dinner and offers VIP concert tickets as a thank you, insisting everyone accepts these. The supplier is applying psychological pressure to normalize behavior that exists in a gray area. Take a moment.
Does accepting this offer push you directly into the perceived conflict quadrant? Relying on instinct to answer this is a failure of governance. Complex scenarios require a strict diagnostic protocol to filter out subjective bias. This 3D funnel represents the 5-step diagnostic filtration protocol, engineered to mechanically strip risk.
Running the VIP ticket scenario through the first 3 gates, legality, transparency, and fairness, reveals that hidden luxury gifts immediately fail. Gate 4 provides the most powerful defense against perceived conflict. We call this the front page test. This test forces you to visualize your private vendor interactions broadcasted globally. These simulated newspaper headlines contrast the safety of total transparency against the catastrophic institutional damage of a perceived favoritism scandal. Returning to the diagnostic funnel, Step 5 confirms whether the decision protects stakeholder trust, forcing a defensible and objective outcome. The protocol outputs a mandatory action: politely decline the VIP tickets, immediately declare the offer to governance bodies, and maintain total objectivity. Utilizing this rigid filtration process guarantees that well-meaning professionals do not accidentally collapse institutional trust due to flawed optics. This diagram maps how the 5-step protocol physically constructs organizational trust. Steps 1 through 3 forge the base of personal integrity. Step 4 reinforces professional conduct. Finally, Step 5 elevates the entire structure to secure public trust. Institutional confidence is never accidental. It is the aggregate result of rigorous diagnostic filtration applied consistently by every professional. For C-suite leaders and project managers, these structural guidelines represent the baseline, not the ceiling, of professional ethics. Practitioners carry active, ongoing responsibilities: defending the profession's global reputation, maintaining strict integrity under pressure, and aggressively declaring all vendor hospitality. The true mark of strategic leadership is recognizing that perceived conflicts destroy commercial viability as effectively as real ones. The protection of long-term institutional fairness requires rigorous judgment. True ethical leadership begins exactly where simple rule following ends. Evaluate your own internal frameworks against these standards. In our next module, we will map out specific supplier conflicts